Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Hawe. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All trades placed by myself are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Please pause the video and read this disclosure in full. Thank you. Position updates, 3 longs on, no shorts right now. That could change in the coming days, though, for sure, depending how interest rates move. A couple of earnings coming out. Kava, those numbers look pretty good thanks to Josh Leffler and his bank accounts. Looks like they all beat, right? Yeah, all those numbers beat, but it was a pretty big run into it, so you never know with stuff like that. Box numbers looked okay. Yeah, they look okay. Not a huge beat. Stock down-ticked, up-ticked, pretty much flat now. I think there's a few other names coming out. And then tomorrow morning, Chewy reports. There's definitely at least one other. Oh, Abercrombie. Well, you got Dick's Sporting Goods reporting tomorrow morning too, and then Abercrombie and Fitch, which I guess is cool again. Or maybe it never stopped being cool. I don't know. Maybe I'm not cool. But some retail coming out this week. I'm surprised that Kav is ticking down on that, but you never know. Anyway, so markets, pretty quiet day today. SPY is currently up 0.03, 16 cents. We finished pretty much right at 530. Overall, pretty slow and quiet day. Someone said it was an inside day for the SPY. I think we barely broke Friday's high in the morning. It was pretty much like our opening print. Just looking at a 5-minute chart. Yeah, got above Friday's high pretty much at the open and then never took that out. Rolled over a bit this afternoon. Markets do what they do these days. V-bottom more often than not. So we kind of V-bottomed that afternoon rollover into the close. And overall, pretty much a slow day there for the SPY. If you were only looking at the SPY, you would have thought that nothing really happened today. But that's definitely not the case. TLT down a decent amount today, technically giving a bit of a warning candle. I think I titled this video for YouTube, Interest Rates Rise. Is it a warning or just one day? We'll have to see what happens throughout this week for that. So we had a few reasons why the TLT ticked down in a pretty big way today. Kashkari and some other Fed speakers were speaking throughout the day. They seem to really be talking a lot lately again. They seemed quiet in the spring, around like April, throughout May, stuff like that. It seemed like they had calmed down a bit, but now they're fully back out, and multiple of them are talking pretty much every single day. Kashkari came out and said this morning that hikes aren't necessarily off the table, even though an hour later he said that he wouldn't pencil in more than 2 cuts this year. So he basically said that we could hike, we could cut, we could do nothing. So he's bringing a lot of value to us. But that being said, whether that was an actual reason or not, or just a coincidence, the TLT did trade down all day today in a pretty brutal downtrend. You can see that on the 5-minute chart. And then we had I think it was a 5-year note auction at 1 o'clock. You can see this little volume uptick at 1 here, where we're turning down, bear flag, tick down a little bit, bear flag more for, I'm guessing that was more like a 15-minute correction going into 1 p.m. Yep, pretty much right there at 1, 15-minute EDMA catches up. And then it was somewhat of a soft auction, actually, not the best. It wasn't huge. Rock posted this afternoon, we have a 7-year tomorrow. I think the number he said was 44 billion, which is a bit bigger. So we'll see how that goes, but it was a soft auction for that, along with, for the most part, these Fed members seem to be acting a bit hawkish, but they're acting hawkish I would say in a way where they don't want to scare markets. They're just trying to be a little bit realistic. Like, again, literally what Kashkari did today, said it's not impossible to take hikes off the table, but also don't pencil in more than 2 cuts this year. It's literally contradicting himself, but whatever. So that being said, with this pretty big TLT down move, one of the bigger candles we've seen from this since it actually broke up or so, the market didn't really seem to notice it. Again, SPY, really quiet day, pretty slow, more or less unchanged. Qs with the strength, which does make sense with the interest rates rising. I forget what the IWM finished at, but I'm guessing it was worse than the SPY and the Qs. I am correct. IWM finished red. Still a little bit red. Not a huge red day, but the candle's not that great either. Really ugly day on Thursday. Thursday was an ugly day for pretty much everything besides NVIDIA, even though we seem to have, we were waiting for NVIDIA to report last Thursday. NVIDIA reported. They blew out and beat for the either 4th or 5th time in a row, which that last NVIDIA report was the year anniversary of the first like huge AI report where, it went up like 25% or something, some insane amount. So it's been a year since that, and every single report they've had, they have just kept crushing it and kept crushing it. They're talking about some pretty interesting stats with their CEO today and his rise in wealth. I think they said it was like the fastest billionaire, something like 55 billion in net worth he gained over the past year or so. I think he's worth like 90 billion now, put him at like number 17 for richest person in the world, something like that. But his net worth more than doubled over the last year or so. Shout out to him. Definitely that leather jacket playing a role in that. No, but all jokes aside, seems like things are kind of stalling out here a bit, but it's weird. Again, like everything sold last Thursday in a pretty big, what you would think to be a warning signal, warning candle. If you looked at that, saw the action from everything last Thursday, you would think, oh, well, that's after NVIDIA earnings. NVIDIA must have gapped up and went red and just sold all day and got crushed. And it was the exact opposite. NVIDIA gapped up, it got bought up. I guess it tailed down a little bit into the end of the day last Thursday. Then Friday, we had an inside day. Friday was an extremely slow day. It was the day before the holiday Memorial Day weekend, so that makes sense. And now we're actually starting to get into the summer months where, a lot of corporations have like summer Fridays and stuff. Not us Wall Street people, but everyone else seems to take Fridays pretty slowly. So Friday was a nothing really day, inside day for NVIDIA. And then today, NVIDIA gaps up in a pretty big way, and it trades up all day. Pretty sure NVIDIA's opening bar was the low of the day, unless it broke it. Let me look at this 5-minute real quick, but I believe NVIDIA's opening bar was the low of the day. Yep, yeah. Opening print, I guess, ticked down a little bit, but first 5-minute bar was the low of the day for NVIDIA. Grinded up all day. Slightly rolled over this afternoon, which timed with that TLT's kind of second wave down after that auction that we saw this afternoon, the soft auction. Rolled over a little bit, held 1150. It's weird. I do often see NVIDIA hold numbers pretty well, kind of like what Apple likes to do. There's not many names that really do that. And you'd think with this NVIDIA, which at this point, this thing's getting pretty expensive. They did announce a split that last earnings report. I think it's a 10-to-1 split, and it's effective sometime in June this coming month. I forget the exact date for that. But it's getting pretty expensive, aka can be pretty spready during the day. This thing will often have 30, 50 plus cent spreads on it, which isn't huge, but again, it's a $1,100 name, so it doesn't make it exactly easy to trade. You got to start taking a little bit less size and more space risks than we had to in the past. We'll see how it trades after that split. Most people are excited for it. I don't want to say I'm not excited for it. I definitely am excited for it, but I would expect it to trade less crazy after that, so that might disappoint some people. But that being said, another big day for Nvidia. If you're looking at Nvidia, which pretty much is the stock market at this point, then everything is all good. If you're looking at the SPY, you're seeing, or pretty much any indice really, you're seeing last Thursday's candle was a warning candle. Friday was an inside day. That sets up a potential play to negate that warning candle. If we get an inside and up, today we tried to trigger that inside and up. I'd argue that didn't really trigger though, if we're pretty much gapping above it, trade back below it, and then don't really see any higher for the rest of the day. And also futures were open yesterday for Monday, which they often are open on holidays when the normal market's closed. So that gap up was partially from just the futures grinding up a little bit yesterday. A split doesn't make it cheaper. Yeah. Well, the share price, it does. But obviously it doesn't change the value of the company. That is correct. So, yeah, if you're just looking at the market, things look okay. We're working on negating that warning candle that came in last Thursday. But not really too much to worry about. But then today, you look at this TLT, and that's definitely concerning. It definitely is. It's a fast and hard move for interest rates, which, again, like we were talking about this afternoon, and Derek's highlighted many times, it's not... It depends what interest rates are. It depends where they're going. But it's really the speed at which they change, the faster and harder that they either rise or fall, that really seems to impact markets in a pretty big way whenever we do see that. So I, as well as I think a lot of you guys here today too, were surprised that this market didn't trade worse today based on what that TLT did. I mean, this thing barely upticked all day. All of the 15-minute corrections that it had 1 to 2 were pure time corrections sideways, really didn't bounce much at all. And it's arguably a bit concerning. Again, back to the title of this video, is it a warning or is it just a one-day thing? We'll have to see. That auction tomorrow is definitely going to be important with that. That could help negate this and change the flow back upward, or it could make it worse. And if it makes it worse, and we really start to downtick heavily, I don't see how the market doesn't notice that and starts to sell a little bit further and harder. That just makes logical sense to me. So speaking of the TLT, I am long it. I've been long it. We got long, or I got long. I don't know if anyone followed me in that. Down, my price is like mid 87s or so. And the thesis behind that trade was pretty much that I think there's a bit of a ceiling in interest rates. If markets keep trading well and the economy keeps, humming along well, we're not getting too crazy to the upside. It's not exuberance in any real way. And if inflation stays tame, which it has been staying tame, there's been one or two like little hot prints here and there, but then other economic data has been coming in softer and lighter, which theoretically is bad for the economy. But what's bad for the economy helps the Fed possibly cut rates, which the market likes, vice versa. These days, 1 week, some data, bad data could be good for the market. The next week, bad data could be bad for the market. Really depends. So my thesis behind that trade, which so far has been good, is, that just interest rates probably aren't going to see higher than their height for the year or for this whole cycle. But the main tail risk is with that would be a run in inflation again. Because if the market turns down and this economy really does start to slow down in a real way, for the most part, markets and interest rates have been pretty correlated. TLT up, interest rates down, market up. If the economy really does start to slow, or some bad triggers start to occur, I think you could see that correlation decouple, and you could get a scenario where you see the market down and the TLT up, and that would be because, things are actually slowing down, which they haven't really been for the most part. So if that slowdown starts to occur, that's just all the more reason for the Fed to really start considering rate cuts, and the market would likely price that in more. So it's kind of like, if things keep going the way they're going, I could see TLT maybe not going up a ton more than like I hit my first target. My second target was like 92, mid 92s or so. And then my ultimate target in this is really like 98. So if things keep going along well and smoothly, and there's no, again, like exuberance one way or the other, I feel like that at least has a floor to it. Then if the market downticks, the economy starts to downtick, that's more fuel for the Fed to cut. That would boost it even more. And then the smaller chance, but there's definitely still a chance of it for sure, the tail risk is we actually do see inflation start to uptick again. And I'm not talking about a 0.1% hotter CPI print. I'm talking, inflation starts to get back into mid threes, 4 plus or something like that. And then the Fed would possibly have to consider hiking a little bit more. I feel like even if that does happen, though, which I think is the least probable scenario, it would be fairly short-lived, because then the Fed, they really don't want to make the same mistake that they did back in, I guess it was like the late 80s, where they just let inflation run again by accident. They've been clearly scared of that. Powell's talked about that a lot. So I feel like if that were to happen and we do see inflation actually start to tick up, the Fed would be pretty aggressive to stop that right away, and it would be fairly short-lived. Because at the same time, like if inflation starts to tick up again, that means prices are going up, but people are still paying them. People still have money. The stock market might not perform so bad in that. That's, again, TLT was nosediving and interest rates were rallying and Fed was hiking when GameStop and, all like these crazy like kind of mini bubbles were popping up. It wasn't the 2021 scenario. But still we had like these mini little bubbles here and there popping up. So, we'll see. That's kind of my overall thesis for the TLT, for this TLT trade that I'm in, for the market in general, where I feel like it might not go a ton higher than that 92 for now. I do feel like it should have a bit of a floor to it, though. And then it's going to, as the Fed's been saying, a lot of this is going to be data dependent, where if things just stay the way they've been going, we should be able to kind of keep grinding higher. If inflation actually ticks down, which would correspond with a slower economy, which, that would make sense, then I think you could see that correlation decouple, and the market could work itself lower and TLT could work itself higher, which has definitely been a case in the past. I feel like that's what it more or less used to be like. They used to be a little bit inversely correlated. And then the tail risk is that inflation actually starts to run again, which is definitely not impossible. I do think it's the least probable of those three scenarios, but it's definitely not impossible. So my line in the sand for this TLT, which definitely could be triggered tomorrow, is roughly 89.50, maybe 80, maybe a little closer to 89, because I do feel like it has a little bit of a floor in it, and I don't want to get shaken out of it, because I do think this could see upper 90s or even over 100 at some point. But that certainly won't be the case if, we're doing so well that inflation starts to run again. And, if that's the case, then can't fight it, can't be stubborn. So that'll have to stop out and take the rest of my profits on that. But I'm just in profit mode in that. And I think that's it from today. It was like a fairly slower day, but that besides NVIDIA going up 7.5%, and then this TLT diving a decent amount, aka interest rates rising a decent amount. The way that this trended today looks to me like there was a robot or whatever you want to call it selling on the offer all day. And sometimes when we see that, that is a one-day thing, and they're, that program's not on tomorrow, and it won't be the same case tomorrow. But you never know. So we'll have to see. So tomorrow is Wednesday. I don't think this. So we have this auction tomorrow at 1, which is I believe 7-year auction that we said. We have we actually get the Fed beige book tomorrow afternoon too. Usually doesn't really move us, but sometimes they throw in some red algo headlines and they eat that up a little bit. And then Thursday we have GDP data. That could be interesting if GDP is like a big beat and this economy is really doing really well. That will probably tick TLT down further and rise interest rates a bit more. And then Friday we have PCE in the morning before the open at 8:30, and same thing there. Pretty much all this data at this point, I would say, bad data is either good or not necessarily bad for the market, because that helps the Fed possibly cut rates. And then inline data, I would say, is okay, not necessarily bad or good for the market, which puts us in like the sideways grind up kind of mode. And then hot data, good data in any way, showing that we're really booming per se. That adds fuel to the Fed to definitely not cut, let alone, I don't know if they're actually going to hike again, but talk the talk of this, don't pencil in more than 2 cuts for this year, but we also might hike, but we also might cut, but maybe we'll hike. We don't know. No one knows anything. I certainly don't. So that's why we go along and try to figure it out every day. Trying to think if I had anything else, but I think that's all I really got. Fairly slow start to a shorter trading week, which this is usually a shorter week too. A lot of people take the whole week off because they had the Monday off. But that TLT candle today is definitely eye-opening and concerning. Nothing to freak out about yet. We'll see how this is treated tomorrow, again, based on some of the data coming out, that auction that we're going to see, which is fairly decently sized. And over the next, probably by the end of this week, I would say, with the data that we have coming up, should tell us whether we should actually start to be a little bit more concerned or not for just the overall bullishness of this market. Because again, last Thursday was a warning candle, but it's hard to be too scared of that with NVIDIA doing what it's been doing since then. If NVIDIA had every reason pretty much to trade up more, and if that sold, that would have been, could have been, should have been a warning signal, but that's not what happened. So I don't know, maybe again, just people sold anything else to keep buying NVIDIA. Bye for now, but definitely by the end of this week, we should be a little bit more clear whether we should be good to go and SPY can try to get to like 540 plus, or we should be more concerned and we're going to see a 520 retest on the downside, if not worse. Because we've been shopping 530 for a while now. We gapped up on NVIDIA, sold off. That was like a big range day. But other than that, we've been shopping 530 since like May 15th, 16th. So it's going to be going on half a month, multiple weeks, couple weeks now of just chopping sideways here. And that's totally fine to do that, but you can't really do that forever. At least so far you can't. Perhaps you can. But so I think that's all I got. Happy to take a look at any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, etc. I can pull up the YouTube as well for questions. See if anyone's posting anything. So give me a second while I do that. Sorry, a little slow to load. Okay, I think I got that up. I do see a couple questions in there. I'll start with the VTF. Let's see. Where is that Kava trading now? Down. Oh man. Josh is hopefully on his way to go get some more and try and save him. Blaine feels a certain type of way about the TLT, which I am aware of. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but we'll have to see. Some of the data this week should be fairly telling again. Rich N letting us know TLT's cooking an inside month. Is that so? That is so. Yeah, that is so. Interesting. Inside month with 3 days left in the month to go. Which actually, now that you say that, Friday, month-end rebalance, even like Thursday, Friday, MOCs, could see some interesting movements off that. My guess would be stocks would be for sale and bonds would be to buy, would be my guess, but I don't think I've seen any data on that yet. Probably at some point this week. It'll be in my morning note at some point. I'll keep an eye out for that. Is Gamma still hugely positive? Yes, I don't know the exact number, but the price action, this like tight price action, you get these down ticks and it looks like we might break down and then we immediately tail back up. And then this afternoon we actually sell down a little more, but you're selling into buyers, you come right back up. That's pretty much the exact price action of high positive Gamma. That probably rolls off a bit and gets smaller after the month end. But I would definitely think that, yeah, it's still up there for sure. And that's possibly part of the reason why this market couldn't really sell off even with the TLT doing what it did today. But a day two that's anything like this in the TLT, I'd be shocked if the market doesn't notice that and sell on it. And I don't mean the TLT down to, under 90. I mean down to 89 or worse tomorrow, in which case I'll probably be out of it, and you'll probably see the market down tomorrow if we do see that. Cody says, been trying to catch Unity. Day 10 still red. Seems to be a seller riding this down. After seeing a grind down for this long, you expect there to be a one-day snap. Man. This Unity chart reminds me of the Chewy that we were buying, and I'm getting PTSD from, but that was also not a well-managed trade. Man. I mean, technically, it's possible. I think you'll probably need some catalyst for that, though. Not necessarily a Unity catalyst, but like if we get light data this week, if the auction tomorrow is strong, if TLT can not necessarily fully negate today's candle, but be trading back higher, that could help it. But this Unity, I mean, I hate to say it, it's pretty bad and kind of broken at this point. I'm just scrolling out on the chart to see if there's any other really levels, but there's not. And I remember fighting Chewy when I knew I shouldn't have been and the levels were broken already. So if you're trying it intraday, that's one thing. If you're just riding this downtrend, that's a little bit tougher. Hopefully you're spacing your buys out well and not doing it too tight and too much. But for like a better snapback in this thing at this point, I think we need some relief in interest rates. And to be honest, it might not be just one TLT update. It need to be a pretty big relief. So you can look for that. I would be careful fighting this. The other play would be for this to base out. And once this at least can base out, then you can start to work the range in it. But right now, there's no range. It's just bleeding lower. And I remember when Chewy, it was last September, we were buying that downtrend. And I remember, I forget exactly when we started to buy it, but I remember it breaking like 24, 23. And it was just like, okay, now we got nothing to go off of. And that's when it sank a bit lower. And then it finally, in like the 17, 18, 16, you can see, just this brutal downtrend, and then you start to kind of base out here. Then you can start to work it again, and then you start to get these pops, and you can at least usually get out of it positive if you want to keep holding it and looking for a bigger move, which arguably becomes a little bit of fundamental investment at that point if you're doing that. Which I don't hate, just know the trade, know what type of trade you're getting yourself into, have your game plan and everything. Which Unity, I don't know their fundamentals too well, but I feel like it's not a bad company. So you could see that, but at this point, I'd be careful looking for like a sharp, big snapback higher, unless there's a catalyst for that, and that catalyst would probably come from interest rates dropping in like a pretty big way. And for that to happen, we're gonna need some catalysts for that, lighter data, stuff like that. Otherwise, this is just a broken name below moving averages. The moving averages are sloped down, so just be careful with that. And if you are trying to build into a swing in this, while the chart looks like this, I'd be spacing out those buys pretty wide, and otherwise wait for it to base out or something like that. I could be wrong. It could snap back to 21 for no reason. I definitely could be wrong, but this reminds me of that Chewy play. And if I stopped out where I should have and didn't fight it a little bit more, it definitely would have kept some of my money. And if I kept watching it and waited for that brutal downtrend to finally break a bit and have it base out, and then gotten back in and worked that range, or maybe not gotten back in, but just started to be a little bit more aggressive on the buy side and work the range more, definitely would have ended up positive in it. So yeah, I hate to tell you something you might not want to hear, but that Unity doesn't look great. I've been watching that and Path, which this Path is a bit better looking, a little bit more of like a rangy base. It's at the bottom of that right now. As far as I know, Path has a buyback. That buyback might be done. I'd have to look into that more, but that helps it a little bit this year. I don't think Unity has anything like that really, so it's tough for now. But definitely keep watching it. Don't give up on it per se, especially if you like the name, if you like it fundamentally. But it's broken, so. Will SoFi ever go up for us again? Hopefully. For now, just, same thing I've been doing. Have a core, been rebuying more under 7, which I did on Thursday was my first rebuy under 7. And I'll keep doing that. What it's going to take for this to go up, I don't know, really. Just probably more time, which that's fine. If it can just kind of keep chopping around and be rangy and just not nosedive down, which I don't think it's going to do that. You never know, especially with Noto being so great with doing the insider buys. That's part of the reason why I like staying in that and working the range for cash flow. I think eventually it will, but for now, just probably more time's needed in that. it's a thick stock. They've diluted it a lot. So it is what it is, but a rangy, choppy name is fine. It's the ones that unfortunately look like this Unity that you got to be really careful with. There's no range there. That is just a pure downtrend. I'm sure there's short robots all over that every day, just walking it down. So, will it Tate? Hopefully, but not exactly sure when. But it's okay for now. It doesn't look good, but I don't think it's heading to zero over the next month either. So sticking with it for now. It's been okay. The big banks, yeah. I mean, I like SoFi. Like these big banks, I think Goldman's one that has a high yield savings account, but for the most part, these big banks don't pay you anything on your cash. And some people, I'm sure most people don't really know or care about that type of stuff, but if you're not getting paid at least like 4% or something on your cash, you're losing money, and the big banks are using your money to make themselves money. Whereas like SoFi is one that has, I don't know what they pay exactly, but they do pay you for your cash, and you should be getting paid for your cash. You can buy 6-month treasuries and get paid almost 5.5% for your cash. So if you're just sitting there and whatever, I don't want to say names, but like a Bank of America or something like that, and they're paying you literally nothing, they're using your money to make that 5%. So SoFi is a good alternative for that. Maybe some people will eventually notice that. But I mean, student loan payments are back online. I've been paying mine every month. So that theoretically helps it as well too, but I don't know. It's still a little early for them, and COVID and the whole student loan pause definitely hurt them over the past however many years that was, 2 to 3 or so. But again, I don't think that I'm not really worried about that being a zero or anything like that. It's just taking time. But that's why when things take time like that, working that range is better than just sitting in it and doing nothing. So. What is my morning note? My morning note is something it's a note that I write in the morning. It's my morning note. I've been doing it since, I don't even know. I've been writing that morning note every day for probably over 4 years at this point, maybe even 5 years. No, it was during COVID I started that, so it's probably been a solid 4 years at this point, which is kind of scary to think about, actually. Doesn't really feel like it's been that long. I try to put pretty much anything and everything macro-wise that one would need to know in a brief 15 to 20-ish minute read. Most of with like the headlines and the flow I post and stuff, I don't just randomly post things to make noise in the room. If I don't have anything to say, or if there's nothing coming out, then I'm not gonna say anything, because that doesn't really help anyone. I try to add value, obviously. So my morning note is pretty much all macro, covers various asset classes and fields and stuff like that, but that stuff, it's correlated. I'm not a bond trader, but what the bonds do impacts equities. I'm not a forex trader, but sometimes what the yen does, or remember back when like the British pound had its little scare, stuff like that impacts our markets. And if you're not really aware of that stuff, then you might be confused on why markets are doing certain things on certain days. So in this business, you got to kind of try to know everything about everything, which is not easy to do and can drive you insane. So it's always good to, have outlets in life. You can't just do this and not have other hobbies and stuff like that. But That's basically what my morning note is. It's a overall macro summary that's pretty detailed and big picture, but also hopefully doesn't take you too long to read because, you know, we only have so much time every day in our lives. So, yeah, I guess that's a fair summary of that. Unity gaming engine. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Unity. Biggest is Epic Games. Oh yeah, I forgot that they had Epic Games. Oh no, that's their competitor. Never mind. I don't know what Unity's biggest game is. I'm sure one of you do. But I mean, they're not like a random spec company. It's definitely a real company. I should probably take a better look at the fundamentals. I really don't know too much about them. Mobile games. Is that like the free games where you have in-app purchases? Which, you know, those are pretty good money makers actually. So I thought the government pays off student loans. Maybe for some people, not for me. Uvixi Bowl asking Josh what the Dow is doing. Unfortunately, this is only Patrick. You're going to have to settle with me for today. But since Josh is in such high demand, we'll be sure to bring him around for an afternoon meeting soon. What is the Dow doing inside candle back down towards April lows? Dow weak today. I'd have to look at the components of that for why that was weaker. The Dow, I like looking at the Dow. Some people, some traders don't like looking at it. It's because it's only 30 companies. It's 30 important companies, though. It's not 30 random companies. Whereas, like, then you have the Russell 2000. It's broad and it's 2,000 companies, but it's kind of 2,000 not so good companies, to put it lightly. So the Dow is important. It's not, you know, the S&P is definitely a better overall read of the health of the market. Don't worry, you Vixie Bull. I'm just messing with you. But day not so good today. It's also a day 4 down, a little bit extended to the downside. Interesting. I don't know. The Dow doesn't look too good, but it's also a little bit extended to the downside and could easily bounce back higher. With the S&P above its 8-day, that still looks fine. The Qs still look fine. I don't think I would read too much into the Dow yet, but again, if we do see the TLT much lower this week, the S&P most likely breaks that 8-day and does sell off lower. Other than that, I don't think I would read. What did like UNH do today? Yeah, it could be like a big healthcare name or something like that. I don't know what the weakest name in the Dow was today, but it looks to me like there was some random outlier making it weaker. So, yeah. Dow overall, if the DIA, you'd really like to see that hold 385 on the downside, which today's low, 387, didn't even quite test that. 385, a bit of a line in the sand for that. 380 is pretty big too, but 380 on the Dow is where we bounced from at the beginning of May, and that's all the way down at SPY 500. So on the one hand, I could say don't worry about that too much. On the other hand, I could say that it's a bit of a warning. I hate to say it depends on what's coming, but that's the truth. It kind of depends on what's coming with the rest of the data this week. So on the one hand looks a little bit scary. On the other hand, it's extended down and could bounce back up. So we'll see. We'll see. I'd also want to figure out what the outlier was in that today. It looks like that had at least one or two downside outliers. Hey, Gabriel. What are you looking at to start a short? I put an IWM short as a hedge since you have a couple longs. I like your choice in the IWM short. Short and relative weakness. That is a smart move. Short around 10 a.m. as a low a day broke versus the 950 pivot high. Do you think it was a good trade? Didn't like the RSP action. That's a good buy. I didn't even bring up the RSP. That's a good point, which it's interesting too. RSP, I mean, Nvidia's up 7+% today, so I guess that's not too surprising to see. But yeah, SPY flat, RSP down over 0.5%. It's a little bit of a difference there. So that was another layer thinking. That was another layer thinking into the short plus a TLT sell-off. Feels like Nvidia's sucking all the liquidity. Yeah, it definitely does. I was like half joking earlier. It feels like everyone is afraid to sell this Nvidia. No one wants to short it. No one wants to sell their long in it. And there's not really a reason to. I guess, you know, it was a little bit extended at the end of last week. Now it's even more extended, and it traded up all day today. Can that last forever? No, but can it last longer than you think it can? For sure. For a short, it'd probably have to be a technical break because we're not really extended on the upside. That's a difference than, you know, if we're $10 extended and we're just looking for like an extension short. 525 is a level in SPY which held that hold on Thursday. Yeah, held on Thursday. Thursday's low is 524.72, so it poked it a little bit. Looking at the 5-minute candle, where's my mouse? And now I'm clicking on the VTF room and it's not. There we go. It wasn't loading for me. My computer always backs up a little bit when I do these meetings because I'm running a bunch of other stuff. So looking at this broader chart, I really like to cheat on breakouts and breakdowns and stuff like that. Sometimes that works really well for me. Sometimes it bites me in the you-know-what. But you could look at 527 to 528. As you can see here, this 528 has held many times over the past week or so. Today we undercut it, but then V-bottomed right back over it. So I think 528 you could look at as a possible short trigger. Otherwise 526 to 525. So that'd be like a technical breakdown. Just purely based on levels that have been holding but have been getting tested a good amount. So something with those levels breaking along with a reason for those levels to be breaking, such as, again, the TLT below like 89.50. That could be enough for that short for me. And if that happens, there will probably be good reasons for it, whether it's the data coming in that's really hot, so the Fed is definitely going to be hawkish, stuff like that. Rate cuts get pushed back to next year. We're just in this forever cycle of rate cuts get pushed back and Nvidia goes higher, and it's just a cycle that's never ending at this point, but will likely end at some time. So yeah, probably just a technical breakdown really here, because we've been chopping sideways for like 2 weeks now. So yeah, just using that level, either 526 to 525 area on SPY or 528 if you want to try to cheat early. If you're cheating early for 528, I would use 530 as your stop on that. IWM, since that's what you are shorting, which I like your play on that, by the way, definitely. And again, if the TLT does keep dropping, interest rates keeps rising, that makes perfect sense to try to be short that. You could probably just use today's low, 204. Yeah, 204 for the IWM. So yeah, just technical level breakdowns. You know, if you're above the level, it's good, buy. If you're below the level, that's bad, sell. Keep it simple. Looks like that's it for YouTube. Going back to the VTF. Looks like without some kind of catalyst, we're insulated. Yeah, Krill, for sure. But this TLT might be the catalyst, and again, it's going to depend how this data arrives this week. But hot data, which is a catalyst for the Fed to keep being hawkish or get even more hawkish, would be a catalyst for the TLT to start breaking down and losing. I mean, it's been in a downtrend big picture, but daily wise, that downtrend broke. It's been making higher highs and higher lows, so it did get back into an uptrend on the daily, and that's threatening to be broken today. So one catalyst leads to another. We'll see, but that would be enough. And then, but then again, like I said at the start too, I feel like that should have a little bit of a flooring to it. If the market does start to downturn, that helps the Fed become less hawkish. You know, it's back and forth a lot, but that's just the environment we're in right now. It's somewhat annoying, but that's what we got to deal with. So we'll see again. Auction tomorrow. I think 7 years, what we said, at 1 in the afternoon. Fed beige book at 2 p.m. in the afternoon tomorrow. And then tomorrow's Wednesday, so then Thursday, GDP, and Friday, PCE. And the Fed has mentioned plenty of times before that they do look at PCE and treat that one pretty seriously too. So this week should be a bit telling. Plus month end. Sometimes you get some funky month end flows that not that they're not real, but they're not really based on anything. It's just pure flow adjustments, stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see. We do need a catalyst, but that catalyst could be coming, and we could be seeing a couple warning signals, such as last Thursday in the equities, and then now today with the TLT and the bonds. I see TLT under 90 after hours here as I'm speaking, so definitely a chance I get stopped on that, and it'd be a take profit stop, but so we'll see. Yeah, my guess would be stocks are for sale and bonds are for buy on the month ends. That'd be my guess. I'll keep an eye out this week for more clear information or estimates on that. And yeah, looks like I got through everything. So yeah, not a bad meeting for an overall slower day, but a slower day with some warning signals possibly popping up under the surface. We'll see how the rest of this week goes. Should be interesting. Might not be too exciting, but should be interesting nonetheless. So have a good night, everyone. We'll see you guys tomorrow's Wednesday morning tomorrow. See you. Have a good night. Take care.